Hello, and welcome to this week's Letter to Past Self, where I'm going to be talking about analytics and what I've learned from them. So, what I've discovered after being taught what exactly analytics are is that you can track literally anything in a game, what the player is doing, where they spend most of their time. You can even check if there's any changes that are happening in the game, what is necessarily this player is doing in your game, and what typically most people use it for is to see if their design is working, to see if the design is brilliant or if they need to change it up. Other ways is that they use it is to single target the particular people who spend the most money in the game and advertise the game more to their liking based on what the analytics say. They're designing the game to be more appropriate to the people that it's appealing of or giving them more money. Case in point. Ways that it can be useful is that it can tell me how many people are using the app. It can also tell me how much time they spend on a screen, how often they change a scene or screen, how many times they press the button. What are they setting the volume, which is very helpful in seeing if the volume is too loud or is too quiet, which is something is very key. Other things that I wanted to do while I was looking at analytics is what do other companies use analytics for? I found that there is a tool called Game Analytics which helps increase people's monetization value and performance by 30% for several of the users. It also increases interaction and virtual economy, as well as IVA systems and giving better insight and more detailed KPI reporting and monitoring. So yeah, that is a lot of fun little different things that you can use with analytics. Where I got most of this information was from Soft Games, which is a mobile app they use, and they wrote a report on how useful analytics was when designing their game. Otherwise, what I'm going to be doing it for is a range of particular things. One of the things was being checking how much time they spend in each scene to make sure that they haven't been excessively that they're not in one scene for too long and that they're focusing more on the major scenes that I want them to be in, such as like I expecting the time spent in the kingdom view to be the highest and the lowest being the settings, and I want to see if it's actually happening, and then once that's done, get rid of them. Others is how many times they actually pressing into the scenes to see if there's too many switching between different scenes, or if there is way too to see if it's just more or less to see if they change a lot of scenes and all that kind of time. Otherwise, particular other things that I was looking for in analytics is see what the end of the stat points are for each day, how many times they actually change, and I wanted to see this so that I could see if there's one stat that is gaining too many points and one stat that's not getting enough, and I can alter it to see if it's working or not. Others is how much money if they have that they're gaining at the end of each day. If the money is too low, if the money is too high, then we need to change it. Same with how much money that they start at the beginning of the day and how much money that they end with to see if they are also spending too much money or they're spending the right amount. This one is probably a little less useful because I typically will expect them to not have that much money, but it can be helpful if they're holding on to a lot of money. I gotta think of why are they spending it and ways to increase it. Other times is how many times an enemy hits the building, being seeing if the enemy spawn rate is too dangerous or too high, figuring out what times a castle fails at and how many days they lost. The others being more about what citizens and buildings that are being built. This being this oof, this being allowing me to see if I have made a building too too good, in which case people only build that particular building, or if I've made a building too terrible and I need to see ways to balancing it out. Citizens that get reject more is the exact same thing because they're a reflection of each other, because the citizens match the buildings, but it's still helpful to figure out which citizen gets rejected more. Others being what events trigger more, so I can change the rate of how they spawn, and depending on many good ones or many bad ones, and others is how many times they spawn, and all those kind of things. I wrote a bunch of lists of estimate results relating towards how many times the button gets pressed, what is the average guesstimate of stats changes, and how much money they end the day. All the other things I didn't particularly know because I'll have to wait and see to see what they are, because it's unpredictable to guess what exactly those were going to be. From this, I had to wait until we launch the game and get analytics in, so then I can figure out what I've done from it. Surprise, surprise. None of the analytics worked in the game, and they actually broke it to the point where you couldn't play through the night scenes correctly, which was kind of a bummer. But I will still say on what I was going to do with all of them, such as the change in currency. I wanted to see which buildings were too cheap and which ones too expensive, and change those. Change those ones if the player was gaining too much money from taxing those buildings, or not enough money, to see ways to balance exactly how the currency in the game works. Others being what events spawn, if there's too many bad ones, too many good ones, or there's just not enough events spawning, or there's way too many. Others being what buildings people are more often to build, such as they're more likely to build more night schools than they are farms, and then they should really be building more farms and all that kind of stuff. Others being what stats get increased first, like which is more likelihood to get more increase. This could be either bad or good, depending on what that stat does. At the moment, stats don't really do anything besides defense, but I digress. Others was seeing how long they play before they get a game over in the game, like how many days have happened, and all that kind of thing. And my general goal in this was to figure out all the little nitpicky things in which I could change it and see how much it drastically changed the game. So if I change the currency in the game, it will affect how much I need to set the taxing of the building and the rate of which they tax at. And other things like the events going off will affect how the stats are being increased and decreased, and how reliant the player is on that. This was my letter to past self about analytics. I found that analytics is what would have been a really helpful thing for me, especially with this project and figuring out how to get a nice balance of everything. Otherwise, I didn't end up happening, but I was able to talk with other people and get their immediate feedback on what I should do to improve. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Or hear you. Goodbye.